Welcome to our info session for this afternoon. So the topic for today is actually going beyond business process. So how to move your system into a flexible system with SAP. Now, before I start with my slides, nowadays with the current pandemic, no, business processes are drastically affected. We are forced to work from home. We are forced to actually work remotely. And with these changes, with these current changes in the work setup, having a flexible system will surely have a great advantage. And we here in Kaisa and with SAP can help your business to be more flexible without sacrificing efficiency or without sacrificing the business process. Okay, so to start off, these are the topics that we are going to discuss this afternoon. Please keep in mind that our main focus today is the procure-to-pay cycle or the procure-to-pay process. So we will have the overview for the procure-to-pay. We also have, we are going to introduce the SAP Workflow in purchase order approval since our main topic is the procure-to-pay cycle. And we also have two enhancements with the approval process, which is the addition of ad hoc approvers and the last purchase price. So for the last two topics, this will be discussed by my colleague, Sir Roel Bohol, for our SAP FICO team lead consultant. Okay. So for the procure-to-pay process or the P2P cycle, for those of you who are not familiar with this one, this is actually just our procurement cycle. So I'm sure you've already seen this before. I mean, maybe with another diagram, but the same process. Basically, this is the procure-to-pay process. The procure-to-pay process or the procure-to-pay cycle usually starts with the determination of requirements. So at this part, we create the purchase requisition, and after that, we move on to the determination of the source of supply and vendor selection. At this point, this is where we create the contracts. This is where we create the request for quotations. So after we have selected the appropriate vendors, we can now proceed with the PO processing or the PO creation. So once the PO has been approved, we can now go to send it to the appropriate suppliers as well. So once the supplier has delivered the goods or the materials, we can now move on to the goods receipt, wherein we receive the goods from the supplier to our warehouse. And after that, supplier will invoice us and we will do the three-way matching. So this is where the PO, the GR, or the delivery receipt and the invoice are being matched for verification. And after that, we can now move on to the payment processing, which is the final stage of the cycle. Now, if you want to again need to purchase another material, we can again proceed with the determination of requirements. Now, with this current cycle, with the process, manual approvals or document approvals play an important role in the process, right? I mean, at the very start of the process, there's already an approval process. Most businesses, with their purchasing requisition part, they put in place an approval process. And on the next stage, in the contract creation, some businesses as well or organizations put in place approvals as well. And of course, with the purchase order creation. Before we send it to the suppliers, PO needs to be approved by approvers as well. Now, we do the approvals manually, right? I mean, we do email, like from purchase requisition, we email buyers that PRs are created already, we need the PO. Or we email approvers that the PO has been created and it needs to be approved, right? And we usually do the approval process manually. And with the manual process, it usually has it usually have challenges as well. So what are these challenges with the manual process? First and foremost, it's dealing with inefficiency. So for most of you who are aware with the process of the approval process, especially on the PO, it takes a lot of time. The sending back and forth of emails for approval, right? For example, the buyer creates a PO, he or she will send it to the first approver. He again will wait for the approver to send it back to him, and so on and so forth. And that is actually repetitive. There's no actually business value in that. So it deals with inefficiency. So that is the first challenge that we are dealing when it comes to the manual process. Next one would be the tracing of the task status. So we all know that the buyer creates multiple PO in a day. I mean, we're not talking like 10 or 10 purchase orders. We are talking 20, at least 20 purchase orders, and it's difficult for the buyers to even trace the status of each and every purchase order. Well, I'm not saying that they cannot do it, they cannot trace the status, and what I'm saying is it is difficult for them, it is very challenging, and it takes a lot of time to trace the status. Excuse me. So if you're having difficulty tracing the status, then most likely you will have challenges as well in managing a deadline. Since you don't even know what the status of your purchase orders, then you will definitely overlook the deadlines. Okay? And the last one would be the high turnaround time of approvals. Now, I highlighted this one because this is the most common complaint from the buyers or from end users. I'm sure, I'm not sure if many of you or all of you are SAP users, but if you are an approver, I'm sure that you are guilty with this one. Okay, and that is fine. I mean, it happens. It happens. So that's why we are addressing this manual challenge, this manual processes. No, because a delay in the approval will actually have an effect or an impact in the business, right? Let's say, for example, the approval or the PO approval has been delayed for 2 or 3 days. It's just not the KPI of the buyer that is affected. When at the end of the line, at the supplier delivery, then it can be delayed by 2 or 5 more days also. So how are we going to manage these challenges? How are we going to eliminate these manual processes? So this is why we are going to introduce to you the SAP Workflow. So what does SAP Workflow? I mean, I've seen the list of attendees, and I think some of you are already SAP consultants. So maybe some of you are already familiar with SAP Workflow. So for those of you who are not, well, SAP Workflow is a tool of SAP that automates business process to make it more efficient. No, it actually notifies users of the task waiting for them. There's no need for you. It automates the notification. There's no need for you to email the approvers. There's no need for you to email the buyer that the PR is already created and needs to be converted into purchase order. It informs users on the milestones in the process. It means that it automatically gives you the status of the approval process. No need for you to search for your email. No need for you to browse your email if the PO has been approved. It will actually automatically informs you on the status of the process. And the last one is actually to ensure that the right information is sent to the right person at the right time in the correct sequence. This is very important. I mean, just giving you an example, for example, let's say I'm a buyer. I created a PO and I forget to include another email recipient. So there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, in order for you to realize that mistake, to realize that you did not include an approver, you just need to have to wait for a follow-up or even an email that asking where the PO is. So with SAP Workflow, it already eliminates this manual process. It eliminates the human intervention. Okay, so to put it simply, SAP Workflow is a series of tasks or task in sequence that we automate in order to achieve an efficient process. So that is SAP Workflow. So that is the definition, but in order for you to appreciate it more, I'm just going to give you an example. Since we are focusing in the procure to pay and the procurement process, I'm going to show you an example with using a purchase order approval with 3 levels of approvers. Okay, so let's just assume that the PR has been created already. So the buyer can now create the PO. So with SAP Workflow, once the buyer has created the PO, it will already trigger an email notification to approver 1 that it needs to be approved. So whether the user decision of approver 1 is to reject or accept the PO, it will again automatically notify the buyer through email. And simultaneously, it will inform or notify approver 2 as well via email. Again, the process will repeat. Whether the decision of approver 2 is to reject or accept the PO, it will notify again the buyer and also the final approver using email. So for the last part, whether the approver 3 approves or reject the purchase order, it will again notify the buyer. So as you can see from here, there is already the elimination of the manual processing of sending an email, right? And with the current situation right now, with the current work situation set up, we are working from home, we are working remotely. By simply eliminating these manual repetitive activities, just eliminating these non-business value activities, it can greatly help you to become more efficient. I mean, not just with work. I mean, you can be more efficient. I mean, you don't have to sit in front of your laptop waiting for the approver to email you that it has been approved, and then you will create another email to send it to another approver to have it approved. I mean, you will eliminate that. In terms of work, you can be more efficient, and also in terms with your personal life. I mean, if we are working from home, you don't need to wait for the email notifications. You don't have to create an email. If you want to focus on your personal health, you want to work out for like 30 minutes, you can do it. You can take off your mind or thinking about whether the PO has been approved or not. All right. So with this tool, we can actually make users and we can actually make the business more flexible. Okay. So in addition to that, in addition to the SAP workflow, we are going to incorporate here the ad hoc approver. So just to remind you, the ad hoc approver is not part of the SAP workflow, but is actually part of the entire approval process. We are including this as a solution to the entire approval process because, like what we said, since we are promoting flexibility in the business process, let's say that approver 2 is not available or is on vacation leave or on sick leave, we have another approver or an ad hoc approver that can replace the approver 2. So also keep in mind that approver 4 is actually pre-configured or pre-selected during the implementation of the approval process. So there's no need for you to, there's no need for the process or the approval to stop, even if the original approver is not around. So we have an emergency approver, which is the ad hoc approver that can replace that original approver just to make sure that the process continues. All right. Now, I'm just going to show you sample email notification from SAP Workflow. So here is one. As you can see here, from the subject, you can already see the PO number, the status of the PO, and the PR number itself. Also, you can see the body. It is a template, so we can customize any email body that you want to use in your organization. So this example email is actually an email notification saying or notifying that the PO has been approved already. And as you can see, there's also an option that we can attach a PDF form of the PO. So it means that you can, from this email, you can already forward it to the supplier. That's an sample email notification with SAP ECC. Now, if we are talking about SAP workflow notification in S/4HANA using SAP Fiori, then it is much more, it's much better, right? So this is the example of the SAP Fiori Launchpad. And as you may notice, I'm just going to zoom it in. If there's an approval that needs to be approved, it will notify you on your Launchpad. As you can see from here, it will pop up that there's a purchase order that needs to be approved. And just by clicking on the notification button, you can easily accept or reject a purchase order. So that is why SAP Fiori is much better when we are talking about the SAP workflow. So if you want to check the PO in more detail, just have to click it. You can see here the details of the PO, and you can already approve or reject the same PO number. So for those of you that is not familiar with SAP Fiori, well, SAP Fiori is SAP's new user experience. It means it is the mobile application of SAP. So it's much better during this pandemic, because everywhere you are, I mean anywhere you are, you can just approve or reject POs on the go. If you are outside replenishing your stocks at home, if you received an email notification, you can just approve and reject at that point in time. Okay. So this is the last part. I mean, the last enhancement of the approval process solution that we are discussing right now. It is the last PO price. So what it does is it shows the last two changes in the PO price of a material or product. It helps approver to see if the current PO price is within acceptable limit, and it also eliminates opening other transactions to check previous prices. So this is an enhancement that we also put in place in order to complete the approval process, in order to complete a flexible approval process. So to give you an idea, I'm going to show you a sample of a PO that needs to be approved. For those of you who are not familiar, this is the ME29N transaction, which is the approval of PO, individual POs. As you can see, we have the net price. So there's no other information about the previous prices, right? So if you are a buyer, if you are an approver, you have to get back, you have to get back to your files. You may have to open another T code or application in order to get other prices, in order to compare, in order for you to decide whether you have to approve or not. So this is what we are going to eliminate with the enhancement. So after the enhancement, as you can see, we still have the price, but now we can already see the two price changes. So we have the first price change and the second price change. You can see the details here, the details of the price, the order unit, the PO date, and the PO number for reference. Well, if you compare the two, you can easily decide whether to approve or reject the purchase order. Okay, so that is the final enhancement to the approval process. Now, since we are done with the creation of the PO, since after the approval, we have streamlined, we have converted the manual process into an automated one. After the purchase order creation, we are now going to the payment or the financials. And for that, I'm going to turn you over to my colleague, Mr. Roel Bohol.
During this current situation, where physical interaction is advised to be at the bare minimum, this type of payment process is very suitable to this new normal, the payment via bank transfer. And by the way, most of the banks already offer this kind of payment functionality. So to walk you through to this payment process, the process is initiated within SAP by performing outgoing payment. So it can be individual payment or using automatic payment program, the F110 for collected payments. And then the next step would be to download payment instructions. So this is the payment instruction file in a template required by the bank. This is actually where our service will come in to provide you relevant program that will be able to download payment instructions file in accordance with the bank file layout. Each bank has its own file specifications. So during development of this program, it is imperative that we must be able to properly coordinate with the bank in terms of getting the complete details on the file specifications. So this will be a collaborative effort between the business user, of course, with the assistance of the FI consultant, and the bank, usually from bank's IT department. So after downloading the payment instruction, the next step would be to upload this payment instruction file to the online bank facility. And this is also where the online approval happens. So the next step, or the last step with this, once the bank received the file uploaded in the bank facility, bank will process the payment based on payment instruction by crediting funds to your vendor's bank account. Just to mention, it is essential that payer and payees maintain bank accounts in the same bank where the payment process will happen. So for example, if you're going to enroll for this type of payment in BPI, then your vendor must also have BPI bank accounts. So just a recap for the benefit of this type of payment process. Well, as compared to, for example, if you use check cutting for payment, this type of payment will lessen face-to-face interaction, as it only needs online approval and no need to physically hand out payments to your vendor or to your supplier's representatives. Okay, so for the next functionality that I want to discuss is the automation of electronic bank statement. Going beyond the actual payment process, to be able to generate complete financial information regarding how payments affects your cash and bank balances, you must be able to perform bank reconciliation. In SAP, bank recon happens by manually encoding bank transactions based on a bank statement or through upload of EBS or the electronic bank statement using file formats such as MP9 port. Most of the local banks actually are capable of providing this type of. So as an example of how a bank report is processed, we do not credit the CIB right away, as technically by just posting it doesn't affect your CIB balances yet. So at this time, you may use the clearing account or suspense account first, like the one that you're seeing right now in the sample entry, the payment clearing. And then when the bank statement comes, confirming the transfer of your fund to your vendor's bank account, that's the time to credit your CIB account with the payment clearing account as an offsetting entry. Just for your appreciation, so this is the process that will happen in the automation of the electronic bank statement. Okay. So in terms of implementation activities, it is required that you or your business user must be able to coordinate with the bank, of course, with the assistance of a consultant regarding the details on the bank transactions and the arrangement on how the bank will be able to provide you with the file, as it may entail some financial considerations with them. So as you see in the picture, so outgoing payment, and then the next process is the fund transfer, or just in case you do the check printing, so the check encashment in that case, and then the bank will send you your bank statement. And then from the bank statement, you upload. So the process of bank recon is by uploading the bank statement, the electronic bank statement. And then you'll have your bank reconciliation entries. Now, to further enhance this functionality, we can have seamless interface with the bank in terms of file transmission. So you may just provide authorization or paths to the bank to your network or shared folder, where the bank will be able to transmit the bank statement online. Then an EBS program will run in background to import data from this folder and then automatically run the EBS uploading without human intervention. So this is where it happens. So you give the authorization or a path to the bank for them to be able to send you the bank statement online to a certain folder in your network. And then an EBS program will run in background without any user triggering it. So it can be configured to run automatically in a regular interval, and then make the necessary posting for their bank reconciliation. So instead of a business user accessing the file and uploading it to SAP, the program will just run by itself at a regular interval and be able to post it in a cash and bank statement.